Well, welcome everyone. We've got an interesting topic that we've been asked to talk about this time. Working from home. It's been pretty topical this year, but it's going to be pretty topical for I think some time to come. And there's a lot of issues around working from home because there's the actual how do you actually do it and maintain it. And then there's the practicalities of how you actually maintain communication with the office and what impact it might have on the bottom line, on IT, on the whole business case scenario. So we've got the whole group of guys with us again to have that discussion. And, I think to start it off with really is the practicalities of it. Working from home is a mental state as well, isn't it? You can't just rock up in shorts and a t-shirt and expect to achieve what you normally achieve.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I can compare when I used to work for the company in the corporate world. I remember the days when I was working from home, probably 1-2 days in a quarter. And I remember the big difference there was working from home. I was much more efficient because you had to prove that working from home works better. But when you switch to work for yourself, like work for business, and when it becomes more or less permanent and every day, that slips. I remember that those days that slipped to the lower performance very quickly, and there were a couple of issues behind that because home environment usually is not tailored for work. And one of the big mistakes I think we all did is starting to work from the lounge, from somewhere, from the general area in the house, right?
Yeah, I noticed even for me that I used to work from home, and the shift to remote communications, to Zoom meeting. I was used to meet my clients face to face and doing all my work face to face. And suddenly we cannot meet anymore. So we need to do everything remote. So we need to adjust to it. And for me, it was a process to adjust to do it through Zoom calls rather than to meet face to face. Yeah.
I think one of the interesting things, I mean, I've been working from home for 10 years. So, the idea has not been new to me, and I've experimented with a lot of things. And as you said, it's working from a lounge room or a bedroom is not a good idea. I'm lucky I have a dedicated office. And when I come into the office, it's like going into an office externally. I also make sure that I am dressed differently. I'm dressed like I dress for work. And when I finish work, I get changed because it's a mental transformation as well as saying, okay, I've now finished my day at work, which is what you would, most people normally do if they're driving somewhere and then coming back. So I think some of those little things make a real difference. But it's interesting for me, the transition for a lot of people to Zoom, because I tried to convince people to have Zoom meetings 2 or 3 years ago, and they would look at you blankly and tell you, we're not allowed to have Zoom meetings at work and we can't do it. And it's changed. So personally, I'm loving it. Pierre?
Anthony, I have to agree. I think it's been interesting for a lot of people. When the whole working from home, COVID, everything started back in, call it March, April, I read a few articles, and all of them tended to be unanimous on saying that, if you're going to work from home, make sure you still get dressed, stick to the same routine, stick to everything. And then one article was quite out of the blue, and it said, yes, everyone says do this, but anyone who has been working from home knows that it doesn't work that way. If for them, they said, if you've got no client meetings, if you've got nothing else, you can be in shorts and a t-shirt as long as you get the work done. And I think that's been quite a learning curve for a lot of people, is like Yuri mentioned earlier about the efficiencies and trying to prove working from home, whereas now I think it's a lot more acceptable for everyone. Ayal?
Yeah, I think what I've noticed is there's a learning curve from both sides, for employees that started to work remotely and for management. Many companies got into micromanaging their remote employees, which I think many of the companies learned that it just doesn't work. And through the process of learning, actually how to manage the employees and let them more freedom to manage their day and workload while working remotely.
Well, I agree with you, and from my experience, what I've seen, the most affected companies with who fell into micromanagement, they didn't really fall into micromanagement. They used to have it in the office. So it's more about the culture. Yes, the environment has changed completely, but I believe that with the healthy culture, healthy work environment, and trust and good communication between management and teams, this is not an issue. So it's just a different tools to use for efficient communication and reporting.
I think communication is absolutely the key, right? It's I know in my teams we've experimented with a few different tools, and there are a number out there to help you communicate. But the important thing is communicating and finding one dedicated space rather than just relying purely on email. I think that's the easy thing to do, is think, oh, we're just going to wait for email, but email can be a huge distraction, and you do need some form of casual communication happening. And one of the other bits of advice that I've given businesses over the years, because I remember working with an IT business a number of years ago, and they were split all over Australia. So they had different skills in different places. And one of the things I had them implement was lunch together, which sounds silly, but if you're in the office, you often do go and have lunch with someone. And once you're working from home, you forget that. And then the physically going and getting out for lunch obviously has had some difficulties in 2020, but even if you're working from home, the reality is making that effort to go for lunch just casually is harder. But eating lunch online and having a casual conversation, not a problem at all. And there's plenty of, whether you're using Zoom or Skype or any number of different opportunities to do that. And you can have the cameras on or not have the cameras on. But I think all of those things are important parts of maintaining communication.
That's absolutely right. And one more thing that in 2020, we all discovered, even for the teams who started to work remotely before 2020, the big shift happened when not you just work from home, but your entire family, your significant other, your kids also stay at home. And that's what makes a big difference. I want to share how I managed that through the isolation when there were 4 of us locked at home, and my office is relatively small, and I cannot shut the door, otherwise I'll be lacking the oxygen, and I have to keep the door open. So the only way to indicate to someone else, we've got a little soft toy, the saber-toothed squirrel from the Ice Age, which indicated on the corner of my desk, if it's there, I'm super busy and no one is allowed to touch me unless there is a fire in the house.
And
it's like in the radio days when you have the on-air light going on.
Yeah, something like this.
Yuri, I think you mentioned how you call your room, which you call it office, and I think it's the right term. If you call it a study or anything else, or using one of the bedrooms, it doesn't matter, as long as you call it your office, your workspace. It's your office. It's a space dedicated for your office work.
It is an office, and I thought to stick on the door even the hours.
I think one of the important things is that's leading to another important thing is when you finish, because you also have to, it's important that you actually shut the door at the end, as you would do, turn the lights off, shut the door, and don't go back, because that's the hard part, right? Is working from home. A lot of people ask me early on in the piece, don't you find it distracting and too hard to work? And in fact, the opposite is true. It's hard to know when to stop. So you actually have to have that discipline and say, whatever time it is, whether it's 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, what doesn't matter, whatever time you agree that it's going to be your office hours, unless there's some exception, you close the door, turn the lights off, and you go and live your normal personal life. Pierre?
I think that's very true. That's why for me as well, when I set up my stuff at home, it's in a bedroom, a spare bedroom that we have. But there's definitely you have to be able to close the door and walk away at a certain point in time. And I think from talking to other people as well, one of the things and I think AL, you touched on this earlier, one of the things that the working from home has really brought to the fore is how we manage people, but more importantly, how it's about measuring the output of people. It's not necessarily measuring whether someone's sitting in the office from 8 till 5 every day, but it's more a case of saying, well, look, I need these outputs in a day. Anthony?
Yeah, I just think I want to steer the conversation a little bit towards the idea that it's put a lot of strain on IT to making sure that people have got those resources. But by the flip side, I think from a financial perspective, it's also opened the opportunity for businesses to potentially downsize their office space and save a little bit on rent, or if they've purchased office space, then they can rent out some of the space, so that these things actually make a big difference. So I think there is a real push and a need for it to work from home, but there are certainly strains and there are positives. There's a whole lot of a balancing act that I think businesses need to do.
Yeah, just to kind of respond quickly, Anthony, I think there's been a big change on business, and I'm actually met up with a colleague of mine about 2 weeks ago, and what was a whole floor of busy people is now about 6 or 7 desks being busy at any point in time, and the rest of the space is just open. So I think there's going to be some interesting developments in the next couple of months about with people and mindset, and about how they work from home and how they manage that, and maybe a couple of days in the office, a couple of days at home, but giving people that flexibility, which is what I think a lot of people have always wanted. What do you think, Yuri?
I agree with you. I already seen quite a few examples of mixed work arrangements when people just have shared desks and work 2-3 days in the office and 2-3 days from home, and it's just shifts in the office. They cut down their biggest expense, usually their rental space, and people, that actually affects, in a good way, affects the productivity, because people feel a little bit more freedom.
And on the technology side, Anthony, that you mentioned, there are so many solutions these days for working from home, and companies need to select the right one for them, that will work for them. It can be from communications and actually sharing the work. Yuri?
I agree with you on the technology, but before jumping into the technology, it is very, very important to identify and map out the process, because it's one of the most common mistakes when businesses fall into the trap of chasing technology rather than identifying the process, because technology is a tool, and technology is multiplying issues. It may multiply issues, it may multiply successes. So it has to be in the right order.
Yeah, I think you're right. And technology is a tool. We need to remember that. It's not the purpose of the organization. And it's just here to help us to do whatever we need to do in the business. And again, if you have, we will wrap up here. If you have any questions and you want to us to discuss in our podcast, please, you're welcome to send it to us, and we'll talk about it. Thank you.